Hello again, hope all is well. Today I am bringing you another video made in this podcast sort of format since it looked like people didn't mind it in my last video. And I don't mind it at all either. If anything, I really like working on videos this way. Speaking on my last video, I mentioned some things about my driver's license as well as getting my first car, but how I got my driver's license is actually a pretty funny story, and it's one I thought I'd share today. Like in the last video, I gotta give some credit to the game I'm playing first, however. Just like last time, this game is on Steam, and it is completely free, which blows me away just as much as the last game we played. It's called Vector, and it is a retro-style racing game. It kinda reminds me of an arcade game, and boy, this thing is fast! My brain couldn't keep up at times while playing this, but despite that, I really do enjoy playing this. I recommend it to literally anyone, since I think most people could enjoy this, no matter how much gaming experience you have. It's mostly the timing that counts, you literally have to press like 3 keys, so... And I thought this game was fitting to play, since this story involves a lot of driving and cars. With that aside, let's begin with the story. First things first, in Sweden you can start practicing driving once you turned 16. You can then get your license when you've turned 18. When I was 16, I remember not really feeling like I had to rush things with my license since I had 2 years. So I just drove around on a parking lot with my mom maybe once or twice. It wasn't until I had turned 18 that I realized, yeah, I should probably pick up on the driving lessons again. This time, however, I decided to take my lessons at a traffic school instead of with my mom, since we both agreed that I'd learn a lot more things more quickly that way. I had a goal to get my license in about 3 months, and I was more determined than ever to achieve that goal. Therefore, I crammed the recommended amount of lessons together for the next 3 months. And I was so certain that I'd get my license after those months. Spoiler alert, I did not. Soon enough, my very first driving lesson arrived, and I was pretty nervous to say the least. I had a bad feeling that entire day, and I remember the moment I saw the guy who was gonna teach me, I got a feeling that he was a weird one. I was quickly proven right by his body language and a few unnecessary comments. The guy didn't feel dangerous or anything, but I remember feeling just plain stupid while driving with him. He explained things in a way that really gave off the kind of vibe that said,
I am an adult that knows how to drive a car. You're merely a child who doesn't. Therefore, I am better than you.
No shit, you can drive better than me. Like, that's the whole reason I'm here. And please don't get me wrong, I was fully aware that I had lots to learn and I was fully willing to take advice and criticism. But this man didn't take my emotions into consideration once. That was the other thing with him. Like, being nervous the first couple of times you drive a car is pretty damn understandable. But he made it seem like I was in the military or something and wouldn't accept any negative emotions in any kind of form. So need I say more when I decided to switch out my teacher after having had only 2 lessons with him. I didn't know at first if I should have stuck with him or not since I thought I should be strong about it, but I decided against it anyway because I wasn't there to grow thicker skin, I was there to learn how to drive. Therefore, I replaced all of my lessons with a new teacher. But before getting to drive with her, I decided that I wanted to take a day or 2 to drive with my mom, so that I could get my mind in the right lane again. Her and I went out to drive on some country roads to work on thinking of my surroundings. Everything was going smoothly, up until we saw a huge herd of deers crossing the road up ahead. Like any sane person would do, I stepped on the brakes, slowed down, and let them cross. When I thought the coast was clear, I began rolling again. The next thought I had is what saved the situation that was about to happen. I remember that someone once told me that when animals cross the road, they can suddenly have a change of heart and turn back in a matter of seconds. Knowing this, I looked around, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a brown dot quickly moving towards the car. I stepped on the brakes, but it was already in front of us. The next thing I know, a baby deer was jumping over the car in the exact same moment as I stopped. It landed on the hood, fell off, and then ran away. As you can imagine, I was in shock. I immediately began to cry, thinking I hit it. My mom tried to comfort me, but it didn't really help since no matter what she said, I still think I hit it. We soon got out of the car and tried to see where the baby ran off to. That's when we realized that the car was undamaged and didn't have any sign of the baby deer being injured. After that, I realized since the baby was lower than the hood of the car, if we hit it, it would have fallen over and not magically get up on the car. Therefore, the most logical explanation was that the deer jumped, thinking it could jump over the car. But we were lucky I wasn't going any faster, because if I was, I wouldn't have been able to stop the car in time. We called the police anyway, and they sent out a hunter who would check up on it. That way, if the baby did get hurt somehow, the hunter would make sure to put it out of its misery if necessary. After this had happened, I was so happy that I had decided to switch my teacher out, since I knew there was no way the last guy would have cared about this incident. That scarred me a little bit. The new teacher was a short, sweet lady who made me feel right at home the second I met her. She was really playful and joked around a lot and was tough when she needed to be. But most of all, she respected my emotions and took them into consideration. I told her about the baby deer and that I was a little scared of driving on roads with lots of nature around it, so she told me that we'd work on that in a pace that I was comfortable with. Knowing this, it actually didn't take that long for me to get over that fear at all. The dynamic between me and my new teacher was a really good match, and this led me to learning a lot quicker. Flash forward 3 months, since nothing interesting happened between those months, and I had learned all I needed to. It was now time for me to do my tests. In Sweden, there's 2 tests. One test where you answer a bunch of questions about cars, traffic, etc., and one driving test where you get to drive the actual car. You have to successfully do the test with the questions before you can have your driver's test. When you've succeeded with the questions test, you have 6 months to successfully complete the driving test, or you'll have to redo the questions test again. Luckily for me, I studied like there was no tomorrow and nailed the questions test first try. So there was just one thing left for me to do, the driver's test. No sweat, 6 months was plenty of time. Is what I thought, at least. This is where things got interesting. The day of my driver's test was roughly a month after my questions test took place. I felt ready, but extremely nervous. Luckily for me, the guy I was driving with that day was a very sweet and kind man who was very good at calming me down. He was super chill, and I remember him being like,
So, do you live around here?
"Yeah, I do actually. It's like 5 or maybe 10 minutes away."
Oh, well, why don't you drive to your house and show me?
What? I had been so nervous, thinking I was about to go on roads I had never been on before. And this guy wanted me to drive to my house? The road I am the most comfortable and familiar with? Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. So without any further ado, I drove to my house and showed him what it was like. After that, he wanted me to park, so I did. But it was a little bit wonky on the first try, so I was like, hold on, I'm gonna back out and make sure the car gets parked more straight. The reason I did this is because I remember my teacher always told me that during the driver's test, they're usually very strict about parking properly. And his reply was,
You know what? You're within the white lines. That's good enough.
"Okay, I'm not complaining. Sure." And after the sloppy parking, we just drove around. He was so understanding and actually helped out a lot the entire time. He said things like,
Now do a turn to the left. The sign says Driver's Road and it's about 20 meters up ahead.
while other people would have said,
Now turn left.
Lastly was what has been proven to be my worst enemy when it comes to driving. Country roads. At this point, it was getting dark outside. It was raining and we were on a very slim and extremely muddy road. I wasn't worried, however. I knew we were close to where we started the test, therefore I knew there wasn't much left. And everything up until now had been going super smoothly, like butter. There was just no way he'd give me a fail on this. I was so wrong. The next thing I know, I accidentally drove just a little too close to the edge of the road. What I didn't know was that the road would break underneath me, 'cause that's exactly what it did. Since it was so muddy and wet, the corners of the road were really weak and broke when the car got too close to them. So in the next second, we were sitting at a almost 90-degree angle with half the car down in the trench that was next to the road. Whoops. We were both pretty shocked, but he made sure to check that I wasn't injured right away, which I wasn't. He had to call someone to pick us and the car up, and that's when it slowly started to hit me that I'd probably failed this test. I asked him, and he said that he couldn't call this a success after this, but that everything else had been going well and that I would definitely make it in the next try. I was so disappointed since I felt like it was a really unfair situation, but the only thing I could do now was sit and wait for our rescue. Which took 1.5 hours. It was a little awkward. Anyway, we eventually got picked up and got a ride back. I remember feeling just so embarrassed and humiliated. Like, it's one thing to fail your tests, it's a whole different thing when you get the car in the trench. One thing that made me feel better though was that while we were waiting for someone to pick us up, a local approached us and made sure we were okay. He told us that lots of cars usually got stuck in that trench and that this wasn't a rare occasion to happen. Nonetheless, I still felt a little hopeless. Me and my teacher made sure to pick up a few extra lessons after this to work on navigating on difficult roads. I eventually got over the incident and put it behind me, right in time for my second try. If I thought I was nervous last time, it was nothing compared to this time. Both of these times I had been putting so much pressure on myself that I had to pass. Like there were no exceptions. I was a little bit more unfortunate this time, however, since the person I'd be driving with this time was in training. I didn't even get a say in the situation. They just told me that she was in training and that she'd be in the front seat with me, and that was final. She wasn't the one who'd be judging me and giving me my result, however. Another woman was in the back seat and she was the one training the trainee. She wasn't allowed to say anything during the test, however. The trainee girl wasn't anything like the last guy. She wasn't able to calm me down, and I actually think it's because she was nervous herself, which didn't make me feel safe at all. She gave unclear directions and spoke to me with a high and squeaky voice as if I was a toddler. I don't want to give her too much crap though. She was in training and was by no means a professional. I get that. What I don't get is why I didn't get to get a say in if I was comfortable with having a trainee giving me directions or not. After all, I was the one driving the car. When the test was over, I remember having the feeling that I had done everything wrong and I just knew I was failing this. My suspicions were confirmed when she told me the results. I had in fact failed. I remember telling her, "Yeah, I had a feeling. I feel like nothing went well." And that made her quiet for a moment. She then said,
No, everything went well. You just missed the stop sign."
Oh. For context, in Sweden you can lose your driver's license if a cop catches you not stopping at a stop sign. Therefore, they obviously couldn't let me pass this test. After she told me that though, I remember getting a flashback where I saw the stop sign, then forgot which way I was supposed to turn, tried to remember that, remembered I was supposed to turn left, and that made me completely forget to stop the car in that process. This time, I was not only disappointed, I was angry. This mistake was completely my fault, and I knew it was something that never occurred when I had been driving before, so why now of all days? However, like I said, this mistake was completely my fault this time. Last time, something that was pretty unpredictable made me fail. Knowing this, I found motivation and knew what to think about for my third try. My third try. It was all or nothing now. Why? Because if I didn't succeed now, 6 months would have passed, meaning I would have to redo the first test I did. This really stressed me out at first. But then I got so fed up and tired that I just didn't care anymore. Not in a bad way though. Not in the way where you stop caring and stop working towards your goals. Much rather in a way where I stopped caring and told myself, I know what I have to do, I know I can succeed, but if I don't, that's fine. I'll work it out. It was more of some kind of acceptance rather than not caring, now that I think about it. So when the day for my third try came up, I was barely nervous at all. I was maybe a bit too calm because we were almost late for the test. But I remember that day I had a strong gut feeling that everything would work out fine. The guy who was judging me that day was okay too. He was nice to me and gave me clear directions on what to do. He was also pretty straightforward and didn't beat around the bush, which I respected. The entire ride felt very smooth and I didn't encounter a lot of problems. I do remember coming up to a stop sign and I was so focused on stopping this time. When the ride was over, the guy turned to me and said,
"Congrats, you pass."
Those words made me want to leap with joy, but I wanted to look cool and professional, so I kept my composure and just smiled and nodded. However, as soon as I exited the car and saw my teacher waiting for me, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I began jumping around and she was so happy for me. The guy who had been judging my results also told me that I took turns a little too quickly and that I sometimes didn't slow down as much as I needed to, and that I should take it easy from now on. But thinking back at it now, I realized that I was driving a little recklessly since we had almost been late to the test and I was still in that mindset that I had to rush things while I was taking the test. Because after that, I was driving calmly again. But remember how I said in the beginning of all this that I had a goal to get my license within 3 months? It took a little longer than that. It actually took somewhere between 6 to 8 months. But you know what? That's also pretty impressive in my opinion. And either way, I eventually got it, and that's all that matters to me. I think I would have gotten it within 3 to 4 months if the whole trench incident didn't happen. But it did, along with many other incidents. But I learned from all of them, which I'm thankful for. And if I could, I wouldn't go back and change the outcome. Now I've had my license for about 8 months, and I've kept learning since then. I've got my own car now, who likes to prank me. No, I'm serious. It keeps doing weird shit making me think it's broken. But when we look it up, nothing seems to be wrong. And after we've looked it up, it stops doing the thing that made me worry. But I kinda like that about my car. Kinda gives it a personality in a way, I guess. But yeah, that's the whole story. I hope you enjoyed listening, and if you made it all the way through, genuinely, thank you. I hope you'll have a good day or night or whatever time it is for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!